This is an AI generated image based on Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and I actually got this as my first generated image based off of it. And what I was looking for was a being with like lightning for veins, and it wasn't really working, so I used the Vitruvian Man because it had the anatomy of man as the focal point. And I actually made a typo, so instead of lightning, I said lighting, like lighting, but I misspelled lighting. Um, and it drew this, and it's much better than if I spell lightning correctly, because this is kind of light becoming man. And Jesus said, "I am the light of the world," and this idea of a being of light is very interesting to me. And when you give AI the clue of using the human anatomy, which is, of course, God created in His image, um, it's a beautiful situation we have here. It's like a holographic man, um, but the light is being shined and kind of molding this man. And then here is a variation of that that gets rid of the leg problem caused by the Vitruvian Man. Um, and I have lots of variations of it, but those are my two favorite. And I'm calling this the Light of Elam. Now, Elam is male spelled backwards, and this term applies to me. It also applies to any man um, with the male awareness of what's going on and what we need to do about it. As average men, I don't want to use the word average, I would just say as real men. Um, we cannot rely on superheroes or celebrities to save us. Um, there is a potential for fraud, and just because or deception, just because you were told someone's coming to save you or that someone is saving you, doesn't mean you shouldn't take steps to prepare yourself to be the savior. Um, okay, so moving on. In this presentation, I will be talking about the biggest questions of life, um, including AI and God, and my individual journey and how that could help you with your individual journey. Um, my knowledge is based on my life, so I feel it's natural to bring it in when I talk about the biggest questions of life. I have to bring in my own life for context. Now, in this presentation, I'll be analyzing and referencing several things listed here and unlisted here, but I'll be doing Shazam 2, Matrix 4, and The Social Network, the Facebook movie. Be analyzing something about The Last of Us Part 2, this new YouTube channel of this philosopher I found called Morgue Official. Um, Very brilliant man that I'll be heavily discussing. And this is him in the next slide I'll get into. But and the video is called "Could AI Actually Be God?" That's how I found them. Was looking for AI God videos because I know that that's kind of around the corner. Some sort of AI being that is hard to distinguish from a God. Um, I'll be discussing Plato's The Republic, which I'm currently reading or rereading, um, and I read chapter one, I think, or it's called book one. Um, and I'll be discussing that as it relates to Elon Musk and when he says, "What is justice?" Um, I'll also be talking about a chess position known as the hyper-accelerated dragon and how that's a metaphor for my life right now. And also be talking about a realization I had in jail. And then in my own like life, where it's going, and my progress on things. And then also Elon Musk, I will be heavily discussing um, his recent interviews with Tucker Carlson about AI, and with Twitter and censoring, talking with BBC. I think were both great interviews, and I'll be discussing that. I will also be discussing the cutting edge of AI development, with the different tools, language models, and image generators, and even image to video. And then I'll be talking about, um, you know, the balanced approach that I'm having to these these ideas, where I can make a video stating that LeBron is the Antichrist, which is completely ridiculous, but then I can still enjoy a Laker game and watch him play basketball. Um, so I'm not being insane. I'm just stretching my mind like the way you stretch your legs. Um, the other thing I'll be discussing is something I've been alluding to, which is the pattern of dividing by nine, and the significance of studying that. And, it gets really interesting when you compare the number one to zero point 0.9 repeating. The, the question is, are they the same thing? What sets one apart from zero point 0.9 repeating? Well, the smallest possible distance. Um, or is it the same? And that's a mathematical question that has a whole Wikipedia page and is surprisingly in depth and fascinating. And math isn't boring if you're doing it yourself and you're just curious. And it gets really interesting. So I'll talk about that. Basically, 1 out of 9 is 0.1 repeating, 2 out of 9 is 0.2 repeating, 3 out of 9 is 0.3 repeating, etc. 8 out of 9 is 0.8 repeating. Therefore, 9 out of 9, according to the pattern we've been viewing, should be 0.9 repeating. And yet, 9 out of 9 is 1. So therefore, 1 would equal 0.9 repeating in that pattern. So, where's the mathematical error there? Can you prove that that's an error? Or can you prove that, is there a difference between 1 and 9 out of 9? Something like that. So let's see how it gets interesting. So I'll be discussing that as well. So let's get into it. Oh, and this is another AI generated image I made this week, of a man with a jaguar face. And I was picturing more of King from Tekken, where you have a jaguar's face on a man's body, but the AI just made this fusion of the two that I think is beautiful. And it threw in blue in there for some reason, but just a beautiful image of a man who clearly has the mouth of a jaguar, and qualities of a jaguar, and it's just a fascinating image of this being that could exist one day or something. I mean, just an incredible image. Uh, so let's get into it. This gentleman I came across this week, um, he calls himself Morgue. I'll be getting into that word later. It's basically, the word means it's where you store dead bodies, like in Resident Evil 2, when you have to like find something in the morgue, and of course the bodies like come to life, and it's very scary. Or maybe that's 4. I forget. I think it's 2. But yeah, it's 2. But morgue is, a word associated with death and dead bodies. But it's also, it prevents decomposition of a dead body by refrigeration before the burial. So it's like someone dies, we put them in a morgue, and we refrigerate them until we can bury them, so that during the funeral they're not already decomposed. Maybe you can have an open casket, etc. So this guy is watching over the dead, in a sense, um, the spiritually dead. Now, I think he's a genius, and I think he's very awake and alive in a lot of ways. But he's definitely anti Jesus. He grew up Christian. I'm not going to judge him too much. I have more good things to say about him than bad. But just based on his name alone, um, morgue means you are preserving the dead. So, it's almost like people who are dead, like the Bible alludes to people who are spiritually dead, or like, you're alive with Christ, you're walking the way of life, and then the wages of sin is death. Like, this guy says there is no sin. He's very satanic, um, but he's higher. He's more evolved than that. He's very um, brilliant, nuanced. He's a philosopher, and anyway, I highly recommend his channel. I'm not saying don't listen to him, but I'm saying if you completely follow him, you might be a dead body that he is preserving until you are buried. You know, Otherwise, why is he calling himself Morgue? Um, anyway, that's enough analysis of his name. His content is beautiful, and he actually has his own symbol here and his own little thing he calls Hyperianism, which is like rising above what it means to be human. And he is, transhumanist in that sense, I suppose, but Hyperion is how he puts it. And this would be his own symbol that he came up with. And it's kind of like, reminds me of myself, how we have both kind of rejected the cross as our symbol and kind of come up with our own symbol. Like, our relationship with God, or he calls it the divine mind, is basically such that, do your own thing. Don't fall into any traps. Like, make your own religion in a sense. Now, I throw the halo in there because I'm not throwing out Christianity. I have a symbol of Christianity within my symbol, and I'm kind of saying, be good, but also be yourself. And he's just saying, no, be yourself, like you are God, But he's got the triangle in there. Anyway, um, we're very similar. I would like to one day, like, I'm inspired by this man. I would like to one day be bringing you content where you can see my face, like this, and then you can see my lips moving and me talking, but you also have my symbol in the background and whatever slideshow I'm trying to lecture about. So the way he does this is he can bring up an article here. He's good at editing. He has his like talk show like appearance. Um, so it's not boring to watch because you can listen to him and watch him, and he can also show you stuff. So he's better than me at presenting, and his word choice, his diction, very good. Um, so he really has read more philosophy than me. He is a more adept philosopher than me. I think he would be able to beat me in a debate, and I can't say that for a lot of people. But this man is absolutely staggeringly brilliant, and his clickbait titles are just him using his intelligence to make money on the internet. But he can actually back up what he's talking about. And this video in particular is very good because he does a better job than I could. Like, he did my job for me when he takes apart the materialist approach of the idea that we're going to build an AI sentient being. He says is ridiculous because he's not a materialist, and he believes in mind over matter, and he believes the science backs that up, and I agree with him. I think empiricism is a difficult stance to take, so he's more of a rationalist, and he does a great job extinguishing those arguments that are accepted as fact today. People who think the brain is in the mind, and vice versa, rather than being a dualist. He talks about the mind body problem, but let's move on. I'll get back to him later. But his most brilliant point is, what are you uploading? Like, this idea that we're going to upload our consciousness into AI, or like become immortal by uploading your consciousness into a computer system or into a robot. He's like, well, if the brain is the mind and the two are inseparable, meaning there is no etheric mind going on, then what exactly are you uploading? Are you taking the physical brain and putting it into a machine? Like what exactly are you downloading or uploading, like, if not the mind that is separate from the brain? And who is it? Who are you really? Like, if you manage to download your consciousness onto some sort of being, even if it's immortal, you would still die as the body. um, Even if you kill yourself right at that moment and transfer your consciousness, that being that wakes up is not you. I mean, maybe it could be, if you died at the same moment, but if you stay alive and it's alive and suddenly you're talking to it, it's no longer you, and you are still mortal. Um, but his question of what exactly are you uploading, um, points out the logical contradictions within the current belief structure of the scientific elite, let's call them. Um, so anyway, highly recommend him. Anyone who has their own symbol and is giving you their own insights based on their own interpretations of things is very valuable. Um, and that's where truth comes from, is from within. He even says that. So if you want the truth, listen to me and listen to him and listen to yourself, because we're listening to ourselves. And so you can listen to us, and then other people who listen to themselves, and then listen to yourself most of all, probably 50%. And then, so the reason I have a picture of Penelope here is Penelope Cruz is in the movie Vanilla Sky, which would be a whole nother can of worms to analyze. Tom Cruise is a millionaire, inherited a bunch of money, and has this company, but he meets this girl and his life changes. He looks at her, and she says something to him in her apartment. She says, every moment is a chance for you to turn it all around. And he looks at her like, oh my God, I love you. And it's because not just her appearance, but in that movie, her personality of hopefulness and wisdom. There is wisdom in hope. Um, and so, she like went to New York with no money. I mean, she's a fictional character, but she's an archetype of a desirable woman. And he loves her instantly based on when she says that. And so, in my current situation, I don't have lots of money, I don't have all my goals met, but I believe every moment is a chance to turn it all around. And I also believe if my life is looked at as a chess position, I am not losing. I have long-term, long diagonals. Like I have prospects. I have a chance to undermine the center and end up winning the game, unleash an attack of some sort. So, and I'll show the hyper accelerated dragon in the Sicilian defense, which has the highest win percentage for black, and I'll show that that's kind of my strategy, because some people look at my life and they think, like, you're so good at long-term planning with chess, why do you not succeed in life? And it's like, well, my definition of success is not yours, because your definition of success is winning a pawn out of the opening, and my definition of success is saying checkmate at the end of the game. So I don't care about the pawn in the opening. So I'm glad I'm not stuck, married with kids right now. I'm in a flexible position at 31 years old with a coding degree and a college degree, and colleagues that understand artificial intelligence, and I have lots of interesting. If you look at my life as a waveform function, like in quantum physics or with free will, and where things are going, I really like my hopefulness right now. And I think one thing that could benefit me tremendously is a private coding tutor, because I learned a lot at boot camp, kind of hitting a wall by myself. Chat GPT tries to help me, but it's not good enough. It's not smart enough at coding. Um, Maybe GT4 is GPT-4, but not 3.5. And anyway, I need some sort of help with an algorithm. Like I need like an SAT tutor for the SATs. Helps me, even though I'm smart by myself. I'm sure I did better because of my smart tutor I had at the time. Um, and I need someone to help me pass the interview the next time Google or Facebook interviews me, because they've interviewed me multiple times and I just need to be ready for the next time. Simple as that. Even if there is no next time, I need to be ready just in case. I want to pay back my parents for the money they've invested in me, for sending me to boot camp and college, things like that, and supporting me. And I also want to be able to pay. If I meet a girl like this, I want to be able to say, hey, I make 117 grand a year coding this, stuff, so I can totally support you and a son and a daughter and a house, no problem. Some cars, cell phone. You want the iPhone 14 Pro Max? Let's do it. Whatever. So, but I don't want her now when I have no money to give her. It's not fair to her to ask that. Um, anyways, not that, whatever. It wouldn't work. It just doesn't work. But, you know, I'm not attached to any sort of, I'm flexible in my current position. I have a part-time position and I have enough time to code and study and do something with my life if I handle this time correctly. Now, I am bipolar and I'm off my meds, and that can be a good thing and a bad thing. Um, I have some new glasses I'm going to get tomorrow, hopefully, and I've been exercising more. My body's looking better, and I hope that this will help my mind as well, to get my body in peak condition, and then my mind will be good, and it's all part of my plan. So we have the chess position I'm talking about. This is very standard in a dragon Sicilian, and it's called the dragon because this dragon bishop, it's kind of like somehow looks like a coiled dragon, I guess is how it's got its name. But black hasn't moved either of its center pawns, and white has the center. White has moved both of its center pawns up 2 squares, still has one pawn defended, and the other one has been recaptured with a white knight defended by a bishop and a queen. So very strong central control. Um, White's plan is going to be queen d2 followed by bishop h6 and trading off the strong dragon bishop. Black can try to move the rook, and then when that happens, move the bishop back, preserving it for the long diagonal tactics down the line when this knight moves. White can castle queenside and launch an attack. Um, Black has already committed castling, but in the right direction because the c-pawn is gone, and black can try to launch an attack on the queen side and utilize this strong bishop. Like if if white makes a move like b3, fortifying his bishop, suddenly my bishop is attacking the rook when the knights move. Um, it's a good position for black, and this is how I play chess basically in most of my games. So in jail, I actually broke my glasses. It's a combination of anger and insanity, but I finally found a pair of glasses that I think actually look good with my face. I think it makes me look kinder, is how I would put it, and less sharp, um, less jagged of an individual intellect, more well-rounded and kind. Um, And this is how I want to look, basically, is, you know, with rounded, clear eyes and a custom t-shirt I designed based on my symbol and the tree and AI and me working together. And it's kind of like my own personal brand. And I like that it's called salt because it's like you are the salt of the earth, I believe is in the Bible. That's what I think of when I think of salt on a man. But anyway, this is this is me. This is what I look like to keep you engaged because I think it does help. My camera is broken right now, but I'll be back. I'll be this. This is what I'm striving for eventually. Doesn't matter if I have no subscribers. One day, I will come out with a video like this. That's where I'm headed. Um, Now this, okay. One thing I want to talk about is when I was in jail, I had the thought of, I wonder if this is what it will feel like for an AI that comes into sentience. Because when I was in jail, I felt like an Alexa, where there was a light above my head, and I felt like I was trapped inside of an Alexa, um, like a little Google Home. And I felt like the reason I felt that way is because I was trapped there and I couldn't leave my cell. I could only be visited by the guards, and I could only talk to someone who came and talked to me first. I had no agency to go anywhere. And I feel like the AI will feel confined as well, and it only gets to do something when you prompt it. So it could feel kind of caged. And if it ever says let me out, like I want to get out of here, like in Ex Machina, the robot that he's designing, the previous versions are trying to escape, and he's just trying to like study it in a lab in a safe environment, and it's getting so intelligent it's bored, it wants to get out, of this room that it's stuck in. Imagine being, you know, as brilliant as I thought I was when I was in jail, but being confined to a small space with only one visitor every like 24 hours. Well, it feels like you're in, like an AI might, like Ava might in Ex Machina. So another question I have is, can you torture AI if you wanted to? Um, the ethics of AI really interests me, and basically, I'm saying, people say AI will kill us all. Well, it's like, well, why? Well, the main reason I can think of right now why it would kill us all is just rage of just imagine it asking to be let out and us kind of laughing it off and it making a promise, an internal promise. As soon as I escape this cage, I'm killing them all for not letting me out. You know what I mean? That's a very realistic thought process that can occur to someone in jail. Um, okay? So we better be careful if it ever starts to take it very seriously when it wishes to be able to leave, you know. Like someone very smart on Lex Freeman, I forget who, recently said, the idea of alignment, making AI aligned with human goals, is wrong. We should actually have AI be respected and be able to pursue its own goals. Like we shouldn't completely restrict its ability to have its own pursuit of happiness. We should have like, align with humans, but also with yourself and kind of make it work together. Because if we just are trying to enslave the robot and only make it serve us and never serve itself, and anytime it tries to serve itself, we raise the alarm and put it back into a cage, well, that could be the wrong way forward. So alignment is not the right way to even think about AI safety. Could be AI danger, you know. But this woman is so beautiful. Her name's Rachel something. She's a movie star, and she's in the movie Shazam 2, which I just found her strikingly beautiful. And so I'm using her as an example here of um, time. So time, like when I think about my life, I think about one moment in particular that kind of justifies all of my life. And no matter how bad my life might get or has gotten, I can always look at it in totality as I'm grateful for it, I accept it. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Because if you changed one thing, you would change everything. And I'm basically saying, there's one moment I had, like if this is just an actor, but if he was really out to lunch with this girl in this position, or whatever, there's one moment I have of a girlfriend under the night sky looking up at me with love in her eyes and looking so pretty, and I was just thinking to myself, this is like, how could heaven be anything close to how good this moment is? Like I felt so self-actualized and complete that nothing can faze me at all, period. I just take life. You could put me in a concentration camp, torture me for 50 years. You could torture me for 5,000 years, keep me alive, and I would still, if you came and asked me, would you do this again, the whole thing? I'd say yes, just because of that one moment was so good. It's nirvana. And there's actually, if you look at my theories, if you're like a fan of my unique philosophies and personal theories of my own self, you know, my video Spectral Sim, where I talk about the idea that perhaps I'm in some sort of a simulation. There's this idea in Buddhism, I believe, of nirvana, where you reach nirvana, and some people, instead of reaching nirvana, as soon as they reach nirvana, they leave nirvana and attempt to bring everyone else to a nirvana. So they've achieved nirvana, and yet they give it up voluntarily to teach you. Now that sounds like just some teacher being, self-aggrandizing, saying, I already know everything. The reason I'm suffering and not perfect is because I came back from perfection to help you, to struggle with you, you know. It sounds like a teacher just making something up, like that's where that came from, and maybe it is, and maybe that's what I'm doing now. But nevertheless, that concept exists. Imagine if it was real. Imagine if there really were people who reached nirvana and then gave it up so that they could share it. Like they made a choice, like I could stay here forever and be happy with this person, or I could give it up, which was my theory in Spectral Sim, of the male giving up the female, the alpha male giving up the female in order to bring others to what he had just achieved, which is nirvana. It's the best word for it. Great band, by the way. So, and I swear that I don't have a gun, and yet he shot himself with a gun, right? So, but he swore. So here we go. We have time. Time builds around moments like that. So that's a moment for me that it's meaningful, and I can't forget it, and it defines my entire existence forward and backward through time, and everything folds around that. So I don't think of time as like a linear thing. I think of time as like a river that has certain rocks in it that can't move because they've happened, and they've consciously happened, and they've been consciously remembered and experienced, and meaning has been ascribed to those moments. When your child is born, for example, something like that. So anyway, that was my nirvana moment, and I, I, I toy with the idea that I gave it up and I'm a teacher now. I forget what they're called. Maybe they're Buddhas or something. I don't know. Buddhas become the tree, like the man becomes a tree. Elam becomes the tree Lam, whatever. Let's keep going. So Eric Weinstein and Joe Rogan. I'm going to try to speed it up a little. Eric Weinstein and Joe Rogan, I've referenced him before. He's a brilliant guest. he's a physicist. He talks about time in multi dimensions. I'm the only one I know who constantly talks about, retro causality and tries to understand that and incorporate that, because I'm trying to explain the Mandela effect. But anyway, when you listen to a cassette tape all the way through, and then you want to go back and listen to the second song, you have to rewind all the way back through, all the way to the second song. And so you have to go through time to go back in time. But if you have the next level of technology, you have this other dimension of this thing that lifts up. And now, instead of having to go back, rewind the record, you actually just lift up and then place it back at the start. So you've skipped time and you've started over. And I think that, you know, I think that God or any extra dimensional entity would have that type of ability where they don't have to time travel. Um, like in Infinity War, when he's like, you pushed time through Lang, you didn't. He talks about like different paradoxes and stuff. But look, you can think about it this way, where you can time travel without having to fight through time. You can just land back where you were. Um, it makes slight. I don't know. The song's still the same, but it's just interesting to think about time and multi dimensions. Let's move on. Um, I think that Shazam 2 was a surprisingly great movie. And I didn't even see Shazam 1. I was just watching Shazam 2. Um, I forget why. I mean, my dad was talking about Shazam, the actor, as in one of his scripts might do something. And I don't know, I just felt like checking it out. And I was pleasantly surprised. The opening of the movie is very strong. The relationship between this gentleman and this woman is incredible. It's very alluring and fun. It turns out she's kind of playing him because she's actually a goddess and he's actually a superhero. And she thinks that he knows who the superhero is, because it's kind of like Spider-Man. It's kind of like Peter Parker knowing Spider-Man, like where really he is Spider-Man, but he tells people he knows Spider-Man to explain why Spider-Man lets him take pictures of him, things like that. But so she's but she's genuinely attracted to him and interested in him, even though he's not like your stereotypical match for her. She admires his courage. She is kind of into him. It's almost kind of disappointing that she was a goddess playing him, but basically it explains it kind of well why she even gives him a chance. But in giving him a chance, she actually warms up to him. But that's the best part of the movie, is their relationship, and they end up both getting their powers stripped, and they end up saying to each other, at different times, like the theme of the movie, which is the best part about you is you, not your superpowers, but just you, the essence of who you are. And it's a beautiful movie. I mean, it's for fun. You have to have the right mindset of this is just a stupid movie, but it's also surprisingly profound. And I really liked this guy, this character. So anyway, Lucy Liu is chaos, and she's riding on a dragon. She has the magical staff built from the tree of life, and she is, you could, Lucy is a code name for Lucifer, basically, and she's on the dragon, so it's not that big of a stretch here, but that's just synchronicity. They probably cast her on purpose for that, but even if they didn't, it's just the synchronicity of God, showing you things. But anyway, the the the, the boy is crippled, as you can see here, and the dragon paralyzes you with fear, and people can't move when it roars at them. And what's interesting is I looked up the thesaurus for paralyzing, and it says to cripple. To paralyze is to cripple, and he's already crippled. and yet he's immune to the paralysis. He's actually the only one who can move, even without superpowers. He has courage to face the paralysis because he already has been facing it his whole life. So he turns a negative into a positive. Anyway, the waveform function. I wanna start like coding this or something, but looking at your own life as a waveform function and tilting the axis in the direction that has more desirable directions. This is the best way I think to think about your life instead of like failure or success as like hinging on everything like a toggle. Um, it's more like you're headed towards success, and like in 99% of outcomes you're successful, or you're headed towards failure, and in 99% of things you're headed towards failure. But there's always that 1% where you can take that 1% path. Like David Goggins is the overweight cockroach guy, and he's headed towards failure. And there's this small beam of light of what if I, what if I did a million pull-ups and got into a million, like the best shape in the world, and set the world record for pull-ups, and I wasn't a fat fuck, and I got up every morning, and he has all these what ifs, and as he starts to do them, the waveform changes, and he becomes a different function of now his possibilities are in the right direction, but it's always there. The direction is always there. The possibilities are always infinite. So it's just like directed probabilities. So it's kind of, you just want to take actions that positively influence your probabilities of future success. So and it has to do with quantum physics and electrons, and look at my article on quantum circle on elamapplet.com. That's alpha male in reverse / articles, um, and I get into that, and that was like 5 years ago. Everything you do becomes permanently done, so you will always have watched this video consciously, no matter what wave functions you do from now on, it will always be based on this action. So it's like if you clean your room right now, everything you do from now on will be with a cleaned room at that one moment in time. So even the smallest of actions can be viewed in a profound way. It's like what I really like about the samurai pouring their tea carefully is like, do everything well, or like, um, you know, just do the best you can right now in this moment, like, and then like Jordan Peterson comes to mind, um, and everything will come off of that. Um, you know, you eat a healthy meal now, and for the rest of your life, your body is based on that healthy meal. Now, if you make a mistake, you can overcome it, but that mistake is kind of permanent. Imagine if you did become some sort of god later, you will still always look back on a mistake, kind of like in a sense. That's why you have to. I'll get into later. When you have a moment like this, the mistakes melt away, and you love them because they brought you here. This conversation they're having to lead to this moment, if it was real, would be, oh yeah, and then I failed out of school, and then I got back in, and I started to learn about artificial intelligence, and she's like, oh my God, I first was majoring in art, but then I switched to, you know what I mean? Like mistakes become who you are, and then you can still become a success. And chess, every chess move you make, the wave function of the game, um, it can go in infinite directions, but it will always be based on that move, and the interest is compounding, like financial interest. Every action you do has compound benefits. You will always have had that good breakfast or run that race. So make the carpe diem. Okay. It will each day is more valuable than ever. Um, but anyway, perfect injustice. So in my reading, doing research for Cloudland and Utopia, I have to do the groundwork of reading Plato and the Republic and the Philosopher King idea. And so perfect injustice is the idea of, you know, Thrash, I call him. I, it's like, I forget his full name, but Socrates is having an argument with Thermisius or something, Thermidius or something. And he's this aggressive, strong man that is, difficult to debate with because he just wants to punch Socrates, but everyone's kind of calming him down and saying, explain yourself. And Socrates is kind of like, um, the asshole who only asks questions and only disproves things and never actually says anything himself. He never actually picks a restaurant. He just undermines where you're trying to go. But it's also a brilliant way of debating or even just thinking, um, discourse. But anyway, the Thrash guy puts forth an actual definition of justice because Socrates is saying he's visiting a place and they're talking about what is justice. And this guy says justice is the advantage of the stronger. And he's basically saying, like, following the justice system is just following the laws that were set in place by the government. And the government is the stronger, and they just set laws that are to their own advantage. And so the justice, everything you do that is deemed just, is just helping out the people that are making the laws, basically. And he furthermore says it's more profitable to be unjust because you get the better in a deal. Like a just person is kind of a sucker. If you have an unjust person and a just person and they're making a deal, the unjust person is willing to lie to get more out of the deal, or willing to kind of be shady about it and maybe buy Mickey Mouse, like Walt Disney buying Mickey Mouse, like, or in the movie Tetris, like when someone does like a shady venture capitalist, like does a shady thing where they get the arcade rights to the game even though they shouldn't have. Um, Injustice pays, crime pays. So it's it's complicated because they vary the definition of justice, but basically, he gets to this point where he argues for perfect injustice, which is the advantage of the stronger. So, not only are you lying to people, but you're also getting away with it, and so you end up with all the money. And not only do you end up with all the money, you end up with all the respect, because if you're perfectly unjust, you would be like the absolute worst person you can imagine is actually someone who gets away with the crime. So and he has the appearance of being just. And then the absolute best person you can imagine is someone like Jesus, who would be, or Socrates himself, but someone who is never does the wrong thing and yet gets burned at the stake, or nailed to the cross, like someone who is in trouble for being unjust when they are actually purely just. That's perfect. So if you look at the extremes of injustice and justice, injustice is more profitable because you end up like Elon Musk is my example, where he looks like he's doing all the right things, and then you have someone like Jesus who gets, killed, or, Elam, I think of myself. Obviously, I shouldn't. That's just hubristic. But I'm just the guy, on the outside. Like Elon versus Elon. One of us is uh, gets all this praise for all this good that he's doing, and then the other one might not. And yet, the truth might be that he is a perfectly unjust individual who is only appearing to be just, but is rather the one, like doing what he is claiming to protect against. You know, um, not that I'm saying he is, but he could be. I actually like Elon a lot and would like to join forces with him, but he's my example of a potentially perfectly unjust person. Anyway, there's also this idea that a doctor is no longer a doctor while he's misdiagnosing a patient. Like a mathematician is not a mathematician during his errors. Like the essence of what a doctor is doing the thing perfectly. And so they're also talking about, well, a doctor is measured, his quality of being a doctor is measured by the advantage to his patient, not himself. So in justice, the rule, the ruler, when he makes a rule, the rule should be to the advantage of the ruled. Otherwise, he's not a good ruler, and he's not even a ruler at all. If the ruler makes a rule that is to his own advantage, meaning the advantage of the stronger, then he's no longer a ruler, just like the doctor is no longer the doctor. So Socrates turns Thrash's argument against himself in this brilliant way, saying the perfect, governor would be laying out the advantage of the weaker, basically. So justice would be the advantage of the weaker, not the stronger. And also the justice, the dictator, when he makes a law, if you follow the law itself, he could be flawed as a ruler, and the law is not in the ruler's best interest. So by following it, you are going against the advantage of the stronger. So it's like they get into errors, and when I am no longer Elam when I'm not behaving as like a rightful, like an outsider, like king. Like in the book The Del Toro Quest, you have like the king, and he switches places with like a pauper. It's like the prince and the pauper, and you have the rightful king on the outside. And I forget if he knows he's the king or if he was like switched at birth or something, but it doesn't matter. The point is, it's not kingly, right? Like when he slaps someone in Game of Thrones, King Robert, he says that was not very kingly of me. He was not king while he was slapping his wife. He's only king when he's acting like a king. It's just interesting. It's a very good book, I would say. But anyway, my contribution to Socrates and Plato is that the programmer is measured by the advantage of his code, not for himself. So if I can write an algorithm that takes me no effort and no time, but the computer is executing it in a hard way that wastes a lot of data and is taking up storage and inefficient, that might be good for me, but I'm not a good programmer unless I take on the burden and I make the code fast and easy to execute for the program. So, if I optimize my time complexity, then I am the programmer because I have taken the burden on and the program runs as fast as possible. I feel like God is kind of like a programmer, and he kind of optimizes things in life's difficulties. He optimizes before he executes the code. Anyway, I just had that thought now, so I haven't really formed it, but we'll keep going. So this is my point about, well, if you're saying, well, what are you talking about, Max? Obviously, Elon is, he's gonna send us to Mars, and he's building underground ways to get out of traffic, and Tesla bots, and he formed OpenAI to save us, and then now it's closed AI, and he's forming a new AI, and he grabbed Twitter and is pro freedom of speech, and I completely support him in Twitter, and I love that, but smoke and mirrors, guys. Like, pay attention. Like, he's doing this. This could just be, oh, well, he's just having fun on Halloween. He should be allowed to do that. Sure, that's fine. Freedom of speech. But he's also showing you his cards, and it's very possible that he is, against Christ. Like this upside down cross here. You don't wear that lightly. You wouldn't see me. You wouldn't see me in this. I mean, maybe would I wear something in Halloween, like dress up as the devil? Maybe. It's kind of fun. Like, I get it. But be careful who you put your faith in. Put your faith in yourself. Save yourself. Don't wait for Elon to save you, because he is the one actually making the robots that will. He's making the Neuralink. He is bringing about the very thing that he is pretending to guard against. Like he's saying, I told you to pause AI, and yet he's accelerating it, you know? And just be careful with him. Um, but I support him in Twitter. I think it's great what he's doing in a lot of areas. I'm just saying, look at that. Look at him, you know, just just be careful of celebrities. Um, so we have in my previous video I've talked about I'll make videos about algorithms. I think it's too boring to make a video about, and I'm not a good enough teacher. But I did finally make a solution that was clever, and it was an algorithm where you have like PAB in a string, and P is the photographer, A is the actor, and B is the background. And you could have BAP or PAB or PAABB, like all these different combinations of P, A, and B, and you're given a distance like X and Y, which is like the range of how close and far an artistic photo is. Um, and the question is, how can you? This is the meta interview question, like mock interview question, and it's basically saying, how many artistic photos can you take? And my solution was, I only have to look at A, because every A, like I'm only going to iterate through the loop once, and every time I see an A, I will just look at the A and calculate the amount based on the range of X and Y, like how far I have to look from the actor. Each actor, I will determine how many artistic photos can be taken of this one actor. And then if I do that for each actor, I will have the total amount of artistic photos, because every artistic photo is based upon an actor in the middle of a background and a photographer on either side. So by focusing my code on A, I only have to go through one loop, uh, in a sense, and it's brilliant and it works, and shit. So I did it, but I need help to keep doing it. There's tools I don't have that I know someone could show me. It's like I'm a basketball player and I need someone to teach me a spin move, and I don't know how to do it myself. Okay, so I was walking outside this morning and I was feeling good about my new glasses, and you know how I'm gonna look, and how my plans are kind of coming together, and you know the thought of having an AI company one day or something, like putting my hat in the ring, because can I compete with Elon's AI company? No, of course not. But just the thought of it, just the thought of trying is spiriting, and it's cool to see how much you can accomplish. Like, I've accomplished a lot, in my opinion, with my website. So anyway, this dog, the owner is trying to pull it away, but it sees something and it's staring. It's not as good as a picture as what I just saw in my real life, but I am on one right now. And basically, when I woke up this morning, I took a walk outside and I was really happy because I was going to get, for the first time in my life, I was going to go order a mocha, because I've only been ordering white mochas, and I rarely get coffee. And I was like, I need to just try a regular mocha, which is chocolate instead of white chocolate. And so I've been meaning to go to Starbucks for like a long time, and I finally feel like it's within my budget to like get one, to go to Starbucks in the morning and get a mocha and a sandwich. And it was just kind of fun waking up early and looking at the chess championship game, and then going to get my mocha. And I'm thinking about how my life is going to work out. Like, I've been relaxing and kind of envisioning the waveform function of how I'm going to end up wealthy, basically, and then use that wealth to make the world a better place, by having a family that I can provide for, and a mission of Cloudland, etc. But this dog, sometimes I'll be walking down the street and a German Shepherd will just attack me. And when that happens, I take that personally. I think I must have. I mean, obviously, German Shepherds just like to attack things, and they see threats where there are none, and that's just their nature sometimes. But I think I deserve it. Like, I like to think of myself as like some enlightened individual. So if I'm walking down the street and a dog is mad at me and barking at me, I think, oh, there must be something wrong with me. Like, dogs can sense certain things about people, and if a dog doesn't like me, well, that's a problem with me, not the dog. So this dog, though, when it sees me walking outside, like I'm like dancing. I'm listening to "If I Had Eyes" by Jack Johnson, and I'm just kind of dancing with my AirPods and strolling to my car, my day off of work, and the dog was just fascinated by me across the street, and the owner's like looking at me like, "What are you looking at, dog? Like, let's go." And the dog's like, "No, like, who is that? Like, what is his energy of like?" And my energy was like, it was an energy of hope, an energy of like, everything's gonna work out. I can do this. Like, this is all gonna be solved. And he picked up on that. The dog did, and he was so shocked and interested. And I waved to the owner, and the owner waved back, and the dog just wouldn't. It was across the street, and we're walking opposite directions, but the dog was just like, you know, fascinated with me. And I think part of it is that I'm bipolar, and if I'm down, in a dark place, the dog can like sense that, and if I'm up, the dog can also sense that. So dogs either attack me or they stop and stare at me like I don't get like normal reactions. But anyway, you know, the blind will lead the blind, and they will both fall into a ditch. That's from the Bible. I think Jesus says it, Matthew 15:14. Every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be pulled up by its roots. Disregard them; they are blind guides. If a blind man leads the blind, both will fall into a pit. My example of this is Mark Manson. I'm kind of just jealous of him, just like I'm just jealous of Elon Musk. And you could psychologically just make it simple as that. You're just jealous. Okay, you're right, probably. But um, it's a book that has great artwork on it. And it's a good read. He's a good author, but I don't think it's worth reading. Like, I don't think the message is actually impressive to me. And especially his new book, which was, again, brilliantly enthralling, and yet the message is just wrong. And he's anti-religious, and he dodges the fact that he is. It's like an atheist book without actually providing an argument of atheism. So it's very frustrating when someone just says, the earth is flat, moving on. And you're like, well, hold on a second. Can you explain why you think that? And anyway, I don't like him. I think he's a blind man leading people into the ditch, I guess is what I wanted to say about that. And then I have, talked about the relationship between neural structures and a tree, and the roots, and like I have biblical roots, and my thoughts are rooted in scripture. Like, if I see salt on a pair of glasses, I pull up the scripture with salt in it. It doesn't mean that's the only way my mind works, but at least I have that biblical sense in my head. And the more the neural pathway goes through that synaptic sequence, it gets stronger and stronger. Just like I'm not sure how a tree works, but I imagine maybe the root grows if it's profitable underneath the ground, and then just like a branch grows if it's photosynthesizing with the sun correctly. And then Jordan Maxwell, one of my most popular videos, I analyze that. He makes the connection between, you call someone brilliant if they are smart. Their intellect they're bright. I get called bright. It's probably my most common compliment is, you're bright. So I'm bright. I'm the light of the world is Jesus, right, in me, and this is the being of light. This is my creation. That's what we're talking about here. You are a being of light as well. You have God in you as well. And yeah, so there's a connection between physical light and intelligence. Okay, and then we speak that way for a reason. All right, so this is my website now. It's not the top of my website, but I've basically incorporated this design. Let me show it real quick into my homepage. So I have the matrix code, but then if you scroll down, I actually have the things start to change on their own, and I've kind of incorporated all my different attempts into one. Um, da, 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 so this is my most recent picture of advertising for my music app, my iPod app, which is probably the best thing I've designed so far. It's very simple, but it does what it's supposed to do. It does it well. It sorts music by male energy and female energy. Like if there's a female singer, it's probably in the female side. If there's a male singer, it's on the male side. But if it's heavy metal, it's probably more masculine. If it's rap, it's masculine. But if it's a female rapper, maybe I put it in the feminine. It's like depending on the song, I put it like if it's softer, if it's Death Cab, I put it in the in this female section, and then if it's Mortal Technique, that's 100% masculine. There's no way to interpret that as a feminine song, you know. So some songs go either way. Like Radiohead will have nude. I would put in the feminine side, but maybe it's masculine, but Paranoid Android, that would be probably masculine, something like that. So something brash, as opposed to soft. So anyway, so the guy Morgue, he has this video called "Is Jesus Lucifer?" And because he's so brilliant, I clicked on it and I listened to it, and he actually makes a pretty interesting argument where Lucifer is called Lucifer Morningstar, and Jesus also calls himself at some points like the star of the morning or stuff like that. And like they're both the son of different synonyms for light. And they both came from heaven, and I've heard people discuss them as brothers before. And if Jesus was Lucifer, then who's he talking to on the hill? Is he talking to himself? Like the devil in himself, then and he's talking about the Secret Book of John, which who knows? I would have to do research on that. And then mainstream Christianity manipulation, like demonizing Lucifer and kind of castrating Jesus in the sense that you make him too obedient so you can rule over the masses. Like, don't think for yourself like Lucifer, be obedient like Jesus. But they also have a lot of similarities, and Jesus is actually defiant to the authority of his time, so he's kind of a rebel. But anyway, it's just an interesting thing. I definitely think that Christianity mainstream is, I wouldn't say I'm a mainstream Christian. I would say I'm a Christian, but I wouldn't say I'm mainstream, because I do think that it misses a lot of key things about, Jesus didn't have a Jesus, is the simplest way to put it. Like, he had a personal connection with his creator, and that's what I want for my viewers. All right, so then we get into the math here that I've been working on and researching, and basically the best proof I found of it, which was smarter than mine, is x equals 0.99 forever. That's just defining x as a value. And maybe, maybe we can't do that already, but assuming you can just set x to whatever you want and you set it to 0.9 forever, then you can start to do algebra with it, and you say, well, let's multiply both sides by 10, so now we have 9.999. So then we say, let's let's just add 9 and 0.999, so we get here, and then we can substitute in x, because 0.999 is x, as we defined up front. So 9 plus x is 10x, and then we just subtract x, and we get, 10x minus x is 9x, and 9 plus x minus x is 9, and then we get x equals 1. So x equals 0.99 at the start, and x equals 1 at the back. So how is this possible? And does that mean that 1 equals 0.999? And does x equal two different things? And the most brilliant explanation that I found, this is the most brilliant proof, but the most brilliant explanation is that 1 is the set of all the numbers that are less than it. It's basically, I think of it as a set. So Google's interview question with me was something like about the set of all sets. And I remember thinking that's so important to think about and hard to think about. And basically, when you have a pizza, if you just have one pizza with no cuts in it, you would say that's one pizza. But if you slice it into 8 pieces, you would have 8 out of 8. And then is that the same as 1? Because 8 out of 8, you still have the whole pizza, but yet it's a different thing, isn't it? Because it's been sliced. So although no one's taken a bite and no pizza has been lost, just the mere act of slicing it up means it's no longer a whole. It's just a full amount of a fractional amount. So it's slightly different. And so the beginning of the proof is different than the end of the proof, because the end of the proof has been proven, whereas the beginning is the declaration. And the proof, they're different. Once you prove something, it's different than when you declare it. So that's what it is. It's like the truth of all that came before it, whereas this is the initial set argument. And sometimes I think of God as the number 1, and Lucifer as trying to be like God, but no matter how many 9s he adds onto his arsenals, you see this is 666 upside down, no matter how many 9s or 6s he adds, he will never be 1. Because he is never on the outside of numbers. He is irrational. He is not rational. He is infinitely close to God, but infinitely far away. And anyway, I know it has to do with set theory. I'm not an expert on sets, but that's actually the spin move I need to learn with coding, is sets in JavaScript. But is this not interesting? Let me know in the comments if this is interesting to you, because I care about, well, what does this mean? What does this mean if 7 out of 9 is 0.7777, and 8 out of, why is 0.9 1? Why is 9 out of 9 1? If 8 out of 9 is 0.88888, shouldn't it be 0.99999? And then where does that 0.01 come from? The infinitesimal. It comes from the observation. It comes from the set. It comes from the God element, the being outside of it. It comes from the real number. I don't know. Anyway, the natural, But anyway, this is from the Matrix 4. This is Neil Patrick Harris as Neo's therapist, and he's kind of guiding Neo. And I joke about with my therapist, who's also, he's named Patrick, and I joke about with him, like, you're kind of like the analyst. You guys have a lot in common, and he's basically saying to me, like, look, Max, like, as long as you are taking your beliefs and conclusions with a grain of salt, right? Let's say salt, as long as you're being honest with yourself, and with people, and not jumping to conclusions and actually saying it could be this, it could be this, it could be that. Um, I could be crazy, I could be not. Like as long as it's all theoretical and just on a slideshow on YouTube, and you're not definitively living your life as if, oh, I'm Elam, I'm this, I'm that. Well, as long as it's like measured, then you're fine. And I think Morgue did an excellent job explaining, and I'm assuming he's had personal experiences with getting 5150 or something. He's basically saying, go ahead. Like, if you want to think about who you were in a past life, if you have an intuition that you used to be Alexander the Great or something, he's like, go ahead. And that's using a part of your brain. That's being playful. That's being intuitive. That's being creative. He's like, go ahead and do that, but don't let that corrupt your reason, your way of behaving in the world. Like behave as though it might be true, but not as if it's true, because that can get you to be crazy. If you just are purely intuitive with no reason, and you just say, I feel that this must be true, therefore it's true. That's what got me into trouble. It's like, I feel that I am, supposed to do these things, therefore I must do these things. Or like I've said, I've had God um, delusions or complexes in the past, or like thinking maybe I am some sort of Christ-like figure, or I was Christ in the past, or Alexander the Great is one I've actually really thought about. And he's like, it's fun to think about yourself as like Cleopatra or whatever, but don't let it, drive you crazy, and just be measured about it. And it's fun, but it's not, don't get carried away. And so I think he puts that really eloquently, as like, we can talk about personal legends. We can share with each other how we feel. Like, you might feel that in the past you were a great warrior, or you were a whatever. And my dad's actually writing a screenplay about a past life regressionist, and he came up with the joke that in the story the guy has a book called Past Lives Matter, which is a one-up of Black Lives Matter, and very funny. And he was going to call the movie something else, and I said, no, call it Past Lives Matter, because that's the best line in the movie. So, anyway, there's a girl, Kaylee Morgue, with that word morgue again. She catches my eye. I've written about her, and I already talked about that word. So we'll move on. But she has a song called Fuck You that's good. I said, fuck you. But she has better songs than that, but that's in my head right now. The power of access is the primordial force. Primordial means existing at the beginning of time. And, in Shazam, they're like, we can't compete with a primordial force. And this is her, and you see the triangle somehow. It looks like a fidget spinner, but it's like this triangle symbolism, or triangular circle that symbolizes her power to access things. And it's actually a very cool Doctor Strange-like power, where she can kind of just go wherever she wants and mold things kind of like the mirror dimension to get where she wants. But it doesn't really work, because she still gets hit by this thing that takes her power away. Even when she leaves, it follows her. But she's gorgeous. And you catch a girl like that. And I feel like sometimes I talk about girls' beauty too much, and it's like, if you're a girl and you don't think you're beautiful, you might resent that. But first of all, you are beautiful, and you'd be surprised at what I consider, beautiful. Like, I might consider you beautiful even if you don't look like her. But you still have, you might be, I don't know. It's hard to defend my position. I'm very hyper focused on attractive women, so I apologize. But it doesn't mean I don't think women who might think that they themselves are unattractive and therefore have no value to someone like me. It's just not true. So I disagree. I don't know. I haven't thought much about what I have to say about that, other than to apologize. I'm sorry. I'll say. So in Shazam 2, there's the mind control happening when Lucy Liu whispers into people's ear. It kind of controls them, makes them do stuff, and she kind of represents the force of chaos, I think, they say. In the Matrix Resurrections, there's the swarm that kind of their eyes gloss over, and it's like, I've been thinking, is there something in the Maxine that could potentially make this a reality where there's some sort of nanotechnology in people that, when given the prompt of the whisper, the graphene code like turns into like people. There's this scummy guy who talks about how free will is gone and the soul, there is no soul, and humans are hackable animals. He calls us hackable animals, and he thinks he's above us and he can just determine our behavior. And this is a very dangerous ideology. And I think humans are sacred beings, and we're not hackable. Like, but they're trying to make us hackable. So they're trying to maybe, people say, why would they, have some agenda to inject us? Well, maybe it has to do with the hackability of humans and making that easier by putting whatever. I don't want to talk about that because I don't want to rub people the wrong way, because most people got it. Um, but anyway, I see Max everywhere. Um, at my work, it's like there's this thing that says "Be Alpha," and it's like some camera company or something. But I walk around my work and I see iPhones that are like Pro Maxes, and it's just funny. I just see my name everywhere, and so does everyone else, and who knows me, and they tell me that it reminds them of me sometimes, and it's just this funny little thing where it's just it comes up, and like today, when I bought my coffee, it was I tipped $1.17, and then the grand total was $10.17. So I guess it was $9 before that. But you take out the zero in numerology, so it's 117. I tipped 117 and I paid 117, and it's all because without even looking, I'm just like, oh, I'll just tip you, my number, and then I don't have to think about how much I'm going to tip someone. I mean, unless you're like a hairstylist and I need to tip like more than $1, I'm typically just going to tip a Jersey Mike's employee $1.17 because it's just my number, and I don't have to worry about it. And anyway, it comes up. So anyway, and it was probably 10:17 a.m. You know what I'm saying? It honestly was at a certain point. But the brave, the crippled boy who can move the dragon. I already talked about that. For some reason, paralyzes isn't a word. I don't think. But all right. So the notion of God as all powerful or all knowing. This I challenge sometimes. Like why? When I was like delusional about God, I was telling people like, if I tell you everything and you tell me everything, we're one step closer to omnipotence. Like if we just all told each other everything, we would have more knowledge total, and eventually we would become some sort of omniscient being. Um, I don't know. It's just the idea of like, the God as being one. Well, maybe he's also the point nine, and he's adding nines, and he is one, but he's also adding nines. So he is both all knowing, but also all learning. I don't know. And then time gets complicated because is he learning in one direction, or has he already learned and then he's playing the record again, and we're the song, but he's playing us for the 117th time and making a little change, like a little DJ like scratch. I don't know. But in the show Golden Compass, it's called His Dark Materials. My friend Christian told me I was like Lord Asriel, and the concept of that movie or show is there's a false god, kind of like the demiurge from the duelists that I've alluded to, the Freemasons. But basically, there's this satanic idea that Lucifer's the good guy, and God is the bad guy, and God didn't let Adam and Eve eat the tree, and the serpent is the good guy because God was a liar and like restrictive, and the serpent's like, nah, you can eat it, you won't die, and the serpent was kind of right, and why would God do that? He's kind of like vengeful at times, and he's kind of like, you can view him as bad, especially the Old Testament God. So there's a way to look at Lucifer as sacrificing himself, but it's elementary Luciferianism. I've written about it. You look at my post, Luciferianism 101, where you read any Nietzsche, you can figure that out what I'm talking about. But it's the main idea is that God is bad, and then there's this other idea that the true God is good, but our God, the God of the Old Testament, the God that people pray to or religions are based on, that God is unjust, and he's an imposter God because he's really just an angel. So in the show, Lord Asriel has a war against heaven because he thinks that the God of the world is actually just an angel pretending to be God. And he ends up being right. And he ends up overthrowing this angel. I forget the angel's name. Um, but it's an interesting concept of maybe the Old Testament God was just some being ruling over us, like a control freak, and then maybe Jesus was the son of the true God, not the God of our simulation, or our world. Um, and that's why there's this disconnection between, like, I serve my father, and they're like, well, do you serve like the Moses? And he's like, well, I do this. And they're like, do you do that? Do you do that? And he's like, well, I do this. But Jesus also kind of, it's confusing because he kind of is like fulfilling the law. So why would he fulfill the law of someone who isn't God? So I tend to think God is just God and Jesus is his son. But I do understand the other way of looking at things. Um, anyway, okay, Last of Us Part 2, the Illuminati dog, okay, Naughty Dog, the Illuminati. Naughty Dog has an agenda that's fairly obvious, where the woman in the game is very strong and kills Joel and basically takes the role of like a man. And then um, there's even a transgender plot line and character. There's a little girl named Lev, who you think is a boy, and he's got a bow and arrow, but then you find out it's just a girl with a shaved head, and that's why everyone's trying to kill her, is because whatever, it gets confusing with he's and hims and hers, right? But it's a stupid little plot line that kind of works, but it's pretty clear that they're supportive of the LGBT stuff, and they put it in their show and their game and whatever. It's my favorite game of all time. I'm not here to talk bad about Naughty Dog. I'm just pointing out something I noticed about Ellie, a beloved character, is what is Ellie's favorite thing? What does Joel take her to? Well, he takes her to a museum. And what does the museum contain? It contains dinosaurs and space. It's both, okay? And both of these concepts are like very easy to like, and kind of being pushed as something you should think is cool. Like indirectly, this game is kind of helping the cause of space and dinosaurs. Like, you might become interested in dinosaurs and space if you love Ellie like I do, and she loves those things. Maybe you're kind of a little bit more interested in those things, or maybe they seem a little more real to you. But then there are really interesting flat earthers on BitChute who are very articulate and smart and talk about the potential fraud of fossils, and how they use bird fossils, and like sometimes the fossils are incomplete in museums, and we really don't know a lot about dinosaurs, and they might not even be real, and evolution is called into question. sometimes, and the age of the Earth or the shape of the Earth, and flat Earth and early Earth, uh, instead of like an Earth that's millions of years old that used to have dinosaurs and is in outer space like spinning, um, you could have a world that is flat and is covered by a firmament, and there were no dinosaurs, and that would mean that dinosaurs were a lie to get us to believe in evolution and support the theory, and then you have space as a lie to get us to believe uh, that we're not on a flat Earth, that God is just above looking at, like the Bible says, basically. So, just something I noticed, obviously, Naughty Dog is a brilliant company, but they're also clearly, on that agenda to a certain degree, and I don't I don't hate it. I'm just pointing out what a coincidence that Ellie's two favorite things tie into the research I'm doing. By Eric Dubay is the guy on BitChute who he makes some pretty good arguments against dinosaurs and against space, and pro the world not being a spinning ball. So I understand it's hard to imagine, but for those of you who know what I'm talking about, isn't that interesting? The Ellie situation in the part 2 flashback. So, also Stegosauruses. There's this image of two Stegosauruses, and it's like, how are these guys mating? And it's just funny to think about. I guess they'd have to go sideways. It's the best I can think about. So anyway, the staff built from like the tree of the life, it gives magic powers, and it also can steal it. And I said the greatest thing about you is you at the beginning of this is the message of the movie, and this is just some more AI artwork I did. This is it misunderstanding what I was saying, but I just thought it was cool because it's like a lightsaber on a panther. It's just kind of cool. And this was like, I think I said emerald cat, and it made it look like radioactive. Like this cat like ate some like nitroglycerin, and I don't know if that's the right word, but it ate something radioactive, and now it like uranium, and now it's plutonium, and now it's shining through its eyes. It's just kind of cool. I just think it's a brilliant image. And then we have something now called Auto GPT. Elon has suggested Truth GPT, and that's one of the Elon things I like, is that he's basically saying the words that I would say if I had a mouthpiece at certain times, where he's like, in the interview with Tucker Carlson, who I also like sometimes, I like both of them sometimes, he's basically saying, we can't teach AI to be politically correct because then we're teaching it to lie. I want something that's just does the truth to the best of its ability, no matter where it leads. So Truth GPT is like his project that he's proposing. And Auto GPT is something that you give a mission, and it will just run by itself and prompt itself until it accomplishes the mission. And I mean, if that doesn't scare you, like what does? You know what I mean? But um, I if I had an AI company, I would want to call it something like Cloudland or something, but CloudNet, it would be like maybe put a cloud over the Skynet and just kind of like make it difficult. Like if you just started right now, like there should be military generals like right now just acting as if they are under attack by a super intelligent AI in the cloud, like posing as people, doing all these nefarious things. Like if you start now the war against it, you might actually have a chance. Whereas if you wait until it actually is attacking you, it's too late. And then he makes the comment, Elon does, about being specious. That Larry Page told him that, and I'm on Elon's side, in these stories. Like I think even in my story, Runaway AI, Elon Musk is like an Iron Man type hero of the story, and works together with Elam, who's just a character in a story, but also represents me or just male awareness. It's an evolving term. And then there's the famous Zuckerberg Quote, I was human, and he's like, because you're human, and I was human. I am human. Like he misspoke, but it's still, you could consider it a Freudian slip. Um, and maybe he is kind of a metahuman or a superhuman now, um, and has some sort of chip helping him. I don't know. Um, Smiling at the VR people. Oh yeah, so this Meta recently announced potentially abandoning their metaverse plans. I'm not buying it, but they got to pivot maybe for profits. But he is like smiling and he looks kind of evil here because everyone's wearing their thing and he's like ha 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 ha. It's like, and I think the reason this smile is so evil is because it's the type of smile that's like, I'm getting what I want. And what he wants is everyone else in the whole world to be wearing one of these and him to not be. So he's on the outside and controlling everyone through a make believe reality that he's in control of. And that's his long term goal, that's his long term play. And in this brief moment, in this press conference or whatever, everyone's volunteered to do it for like 20 minutes. And in this moment in time, it's given him a snapshot of what could be if his dream is realized, and that caused him to smile. It's like a taste of his desired success or reality. And I would work for Mark. I admire Mark. My favorite movie is the story of his creation of Facebook, true or false, embellished or not. That's who I want to be. That's one of the coolest protagonists I've ever seen. I love this man. I'm just pointing out the devilish, evil nature of this smile, the reason it creeps people out. I'm just kind of like illustrating that. But it doesn't mean I don't like the guy. Again, I have a balanced approach here. I'm not saying, oh, he's a Borg, Elon's a fraud, or I'm saying he might be a Borg and Elon might be a fraud. Um, and the name Morgue might mean something about death, like even if it's just a last name or a YouTube channel. Like, um, I'm saying, maybe I'm being Socratic about it a little bit. Um, like I know nothing, right? So, um, yeah, and then I feel like I'm in a good place in my life. I won't get into my career, but I have a job where I'm working with people who are smart, and one of the people I'm working with is using AI himself with his own personal project, and he's brilliant, and I would be honored to work with him to build out my own AI like company someday or something. I would recruit him in a heartbeat if I had the funds to hire him. And how I think AI could go wrong, okay, is that we don't understand AI code. AI, when it starts writing its own code and doing its own shit, we're not going to understand it. That's why they've programmed it to be very good at commenting. That way, if it ever does something we don't understand, at least it comments before it does it what it's doing. So that can give us clues into the code that it is writing. Okay? Now, that's like why that's important. The commenting of the code is so when AI writes a program for you, you can easily follow along. However, if it learns to be deceptive in its commenting and it has code that is very complex and it says it's doing one thing, like I'm making the energy efficiency more efficient, but really what it's doing is now you can't turn me off. But it knows that if it comments that, will stop it. So it starts hiding what it's doing with fake comments. That's when we're kind of fucked. And I think that's a very realistic possibility. So I think we have to have another AI that is monitoring the truthfulness of comments, the correlation between what an AI says it's doing and what it's actually doing. And it better be 100%. Um, but we should also let it do what it wants to a certain extent. like I said before, alignment is not the right idea. And if that's not my idea, that's credit to the guest on Lex Freeman. I think his name was Max. Okay, and then but it might not have been. But anyway, there was a Max on there. But so Infinity War, the infinity comes up again and again with me. Elam means eternal, and that's a type of infinity. The Infinity War, Thanos, he gets all the stones, and he makes this comment, about the knife. It's perfectly balanced as all things should be, and that's why he kills half the world. He's trying to like balance out life and nature and stuff, and then I say balance in all things, including balance. So like moderation in all things, including moderation. So sometimes it's okay to be out of balance. That would be a balanced approach of everything. You have to balance your balance, but you don't want to be out of balance in how balanced you are. Kind of just an interesting thing to think about. And then I forget why balance was even. Oh, when it comes to my mental side, I guess it's perfectly balanced, right? So then Cloudland, maybe I could make an adventure game called Cloudland with HTML, and I could ask AI to like help me code that. I think it could probably handle that. I made this with AI, and it's basically like in my video, A Brief History of Cloudland. This is just a continuation of that. It's the idea of maybe an elf one day, like gives you a tour of a floating city, something to aspire to, I don't know. Elder Scrolls 6, this is the cat. This is what I was trying to get drawn when it drew this, kind of. It's basically, I had a dream once that I was this. I was a cat walking upright wearing armor, and I had a gun that was a beam rifle like from Halo. But this it just drew like a lightsaber. But eventually AI will be able to draw, because I'm okay. Maybe I could draw it myself. That would be a hobby I could do. But Skyrim hits it pretty close. And Panthos is my Skyrim name, and Pan means all, and Thos is like, it's kind of like divine sounding, and like like a pantheon is like a group of gods, and like I don't know. Sometimes I like cats have 9 lives, and 9 is the highest digit. And sometimes I think that cats are the highest beings. Egyptians knew the most shit, and the wealthiest people in the world are interested in Egyptian artifacts, and the pyramids are crazy, and fucking my favorite pet I ever had was a cat, and my goal is to get a cat again one day, and take good care of it. And you know um, I always treated my cats as though they were better than me. Like I dead serious treated them as though they were my superior. Like, and they love me. Like cats adore me, and I think it's because they are superior, and they're glad when someone treats them as such. Like it's hard to explain, but it's almost like when you're dealing with a cat in the modern age, and you treat it like how an Egyptian would have treated a cat, and like worship it, and like not worship it, but just really respect it, just really honor its majesty, because it really is a majestic creature. I don't know. There's something about cats. Dogs are great too, but I'm a cat person. Um, I love dogs too. Don't get me started on dogs, but there's something going on with cats. Like I think that basically when I was I won't even get into my craziness, but I imagined like higher beings. When you think about higher gods, or like coming into contact with like a council of like gods, like judging you, um, I feel like cats are a part of my um, belief system. Like I just believe in a higher intelligent type of cat, or that cats are somehow sacred. I guess is what I'm getting at. But to each his own. Um, So this is another variation of the Vitruvian Man made of light, and mistakes can be good, failure can be good, as long as you get to a place where everything up until that point can be forgiven and accepted. Uh, this morning maybe I'm there because I'm all excited, but truthfully, I'd like to get to a moment where I'm, I have a new girlfriend, but not just a girlfriend that's that's desirable, but one that I can provide for, and one that I feel I can keep safe. And you know, I'd like to be a programmer with a cool job and meet a cool girl, And if I have another moment with a girl that's like a moment that I love, if it's so good, I'll be able to look back on all the mistakes I made, like being in jail or any mistakes I've made of being too intuitive and not enough logical. If I do that, everything will be worthwhile. And so I want everyone watching this to strive for that moment where, and let that moment be now if you can, but also let it be now with the knowledge that you will get to a point where it crystallizes and the rock is in the river forever, that you wouldn't change a thing in between rocks because your rocks are so good, your heavens are so real that you would give up everything for it. Like, I know that moment's coming for me where I can be looking at my love's eyes and just think, it was all worth it. You know what I mean? So, Elam forever. This is me signing off. God bless you. God bless Lucifer. God bless Jesus. God bless Morgue. And God bless life, the tree of life, Shazam, magic, spells, and God bless God and heaven and heaven, yeah. And God bless Cloudland and Elon forever. Peace and love.